So, welcome to our joint collaboration of The Awakening and Mindwars. I'm Roy Collin, and you'll find all episodes on awakeningpodcast.org. And we'll also have the link on Linktree with all our social media. We're on BitChute and YouTube. And you'll find Chris on mindwars.uk. And we'll also have the link for his BitChute and his YouTube and all other social media. Hi, Chris. How are you going?
How are you doing right today? You good?
All well. Yeah, positive as always.
Of course. In these very, very negative times. Of course, we're not going to talk about more negative stuff today. No. Unfortunately, we have to get a bit more negativity out because people need to know this information to realize what kind of a war they're actually in and what criminality is going on behind the scenes and more in a daily basis, evident in our face. So we're just going to do a quick episode to highlight a few points to people, a few dot connections and a few other things that will store people's memory a small bit.
Exactly, because a lot of the time people are told, listen, wear your mask and in 2 weeks everything will be back to normal. But grand, that was in March, I believe. So it's time you kind of, if you're on the fence or you think, there's some conspiracy theorists out there and you don't think that there's fact, Chris, you've got some nice information for us today.
Yes, where should we start? We can start actually with Bill Gates, of course, the notorious Bill Gates. It's interesting why I'm bringing his name up, of course, this week is because just in the last 24 hours or so, or 48 hours, it's been, he's having a meeting at a round table with none other than the Prime Minister of England, Boris Johnson. And Boris, of course, invited him over to have a meeting on how he was going to roll out the vaccine plan. So you're getting Bill Gates over to how you roll out the vaccine plan. Bill Gates, a massive eugenicist. So he's going to come over and going to see what he'll actually help the UK with and advise Boris Johnson on the population of about 65 million people plus. But what's interesting is the people that are beside Boris Johnson are the likes of SAGE. So SAGE are the scientific advisory group on emergencies. And they're guided by the sciences, as Boris and all of them are saying inside. And the SAGE committee, one guy in particular got my attention that's involved in that board is a guy called Jeremy Farrar. He's a UK guy. But Jeremy Farrar is not just on that SAGE group itself. Jeremy has many links, of course. Jeremy is a director of the Wellcome Trust. And for people who've never heard of the Wellcome Trust are a huge organization. I won't go into all their details, but for want of a better way to describe them, they're like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation for helping people, in quotes. They're around a lot longer than the Gates Foundation. They're not as heavily funded as the Gates Foundation, but they're very, very intertwined with Bill Gates and they know each other very well. They go back quite a long way. So on top of that as well is Jeremy Farrar is, if we go back to September last year, Jeremy Farrar was actually on the board of the GPMB, which stands for the Global Preparedness Monitoring Board. So the GPMB basically they're like a group that is acting independently, but actually if you look into them, they're actually owned by the World Health Organization and the World Bank. So the report, they do an annual report every year, and it's convenient that last September, before any of this so-called pandemic, whatever way you want to word it, came out, Jeremy Farrar was on the board with none other than Anthony Fauci. Is on the very same board as the GPMB. And also as a guy called Dr. Chris Ellis, or Elias, E-L-I-A-S, which is like Bill Gates' right-hand man. So you have all these people congregating on this board. And of course, Jeremy Farrar, being with the Wellcome Trust, as I mentioned, also being with SAGE, being on this board itself. If you look at the front heading on the leaflet that they brought out, on their annual report was called, a world at risk. So what a convenient name to have on the front of it. And on the front cover itself, it actually showed a coronavirus, many of them going around the place circulating, and it also showed people walking around with masks on them. It's quite convenient. It's like something they knew was planned or something was going to happen. So you can see where all the dots are connecting in there as well. These are the people, Bill Gates is coming over this week to not just get a round table at Boris, going to be other people as well involved. And we know from England itself, the politicians are consistently saying we're guided by the science. You have the likes of the chief medical officer here in the UK, Chris Witty, which he has received $40 million from a research project. Of course, none other than Bill Gates had funded this. So that's the medical officer here in England. You've another guy called, he's Sir Patrick Vallance, which is the main scientific advisor to Boris and the SAGE and all these people congregating together. And of course, Sir Patrick Vallance, his previous occupation was he was a massive executive with the Glaxo Smith and Kline. Of course, he was heavily involved in that, and GlaxoSmithKline itself have huge business ties with Bill Gates going well back into the past. So what's also interesting about Sir Patrick Vallance is that he still to this day, as we're speaking now, has £600,000 worth of shares still with GlaxoSmithKline. So you can see where I'm kind of connecting all the dots here for people, how they're all connected in a sense that we're so-called guided by the science. When really these people never want these lockdowns to end, never want freedoms to come back to normality. They don't want anybody to be using the likes of vitamin D or zinc or be it hydroxychloroquine, any normal way that you might be herbs and normal to boost your immune system. These people are all, a massive web of these people are all connected and want everybody to stay in fear as long as possible. So they can, because they're vested interests, like any people that invest in a business, they want a return on their investment, and that's what they want going forward. So they are 110% invested in these vaccines being rolled out as quickly as possible, so they can get their return on investment, and then people can, so-called return to life as it was, which we know is not going to happen anytime soon. But these kind of
and you
animals.
Mentioned about GlaxoSmithKline. I remember reading about them. It was actually in the Guardian. I think it was 3.6 billion they were fined for kickbacks. So like, they're not an honest, ethical company. None of them are, obviously, but they've even been proven. So if you can even find that online with Glaxo. So all these people are working together and they're all corrupt.
Exactly. Corrupt is probably an understatement for these kind of animals that are literally out there, and they've no humanity whatsoever. They couldn't give a shit about me, my health, your health, anybody else's health. It's all about profit over health. Really what it comes down to.
Customer
and a control
for life is what they want.
Exactly, a control mechanism. These people make their money off the sicknesses, so they're not going to come out with any magical cure all of a sudden anytime soon. And it's sad the way that is, but I mean, it's important that people know that dot connection as to what is going on. And if people are still under this illusion at this stage, in any country, that we'll just give it a few more weeks, another month, another 2 months, we'll wear the mask, we'll stay doing our social distance, and then maybe by Christmas or maybe a little into the new year, we can all return to normal again. But me and you know that's not happening anytime soon. And
I don't know, do you remember at one stage they were saying we just need one injection and it'll be all sorted, and now it's kind of like 2 a year. So it's kind of like similar to the flu. And I mean, anyone I know, like my mother got extremely ill with the flu injection, and also a friend here in Poland, a young guy, 27, got extremely ill. And I know, a lot of people get ill from the flu injection and they will never get it again. So that's got a 40% success rate. They're telling us that this has got a 90% success rate after, 7 months of development, and they have 70 or 90 years with the flu. So if you just put that together, that it's impossible.
Of course, common sense is what's obviously is lost in these past couple of months. People's brain just seems to freeze all of a sudden, and people can't critically think for themselves anymore. But people really need to start critically thinking and open up their mind again, and moving forward and doing their own research into all this, because these people, as I say, don't want it to end anytime soon. It's the same with what's an interesting part just on the vaccine itself was at the 8th of October, just gone here in the UK, they announced that no longer are they going to give, the flu statistics and the COVID-19 statistics separate. They're actually going to merge them together now, coming into a winter season. How
convenient.
Of course. And we spoke about COVID-19 and how it still has to be proven to exist in our last show last week. I mean, so we won't go down that rabbit hole again for now. But I mean, yes, they're going to merge them together now so that nobody knows what's what. And all of a sudden, in many countries, if you look at the graph now, the flu has completely lost. It's completely just dipped off, never to be seen compared to any other year. It's rising at this time of year. But this year, apparently, it's just, wow, it's hardly to be seen in anybody's graph at the moment. So that's convenient, of course.
Exactly. And I suppose some people are thinking that it's all going to be tickety-boo. We're all going to be, back to normal. But speaking of tickety-boo, tickets, I know there's something with a Ticketmaster, is it?
Oh, there is. And this is only coming out in this week, maybe the last 48 hours or so as well. So Ticketmaster, like what I've been saying, you've been saying in past interviews with people, is that they don't want anything to go back to normal anytime soon. Everything is going to be done via digitally. So, it's like an Operation Moonshot. We spoke about that as well in other episodes. And it's all tied into basically digital access to the world. So without your digital passport, without you basically getting vaccinated, without you getting tested, so on and so on, that you won't be allowed to go to a football stadium, and you will not be allowed maybe travel to an airport. You will not be allowed to go to a live venue. You know, things people actually like that'll go back and get them healthy and well and get them upbeat again, get their immune system, their positivity going again. So Ticketmaster come out this week with a statement, and I have a few little clips on here that I'll read out, a few bullet points on it. I'll leave description for people below. Any links or stuff we talk about, we'll leave as many links as we can below. And they actually say that Ticketmaster has advanced their plans for screening fans before they attend events, which will rely on the Ticketmaster digital ticket app. Once a fan receives a COVID-19 vaccine or tests negative for the disease within the 24 to 72 hour window, a health pass company will deliver that information to Ticketmaster, allowing entry to the event. It's nice of a health company with all your details. You can be sure to be no nefarious ways there with Ticketmaster involving themselves, and God knows where your data will actually go. And a final bullet point I'm making that is Ticketmaster also plans to utilize a smart event system. There's that word smart again, which helps organizers and fans maintain social distancing at shows. Event organizers will be allowed the ability to set their own prevention protocols, such as sanitation, mask compliance, and social distancing. And it's about 3 or 4 times the length of what I just wrote out there. The whole article itself, people can go and can go read the whole article. But quite interesting what Ticketmaster come out with this week alone.
Yeah, so people are thinking you go away, you get these toxic injections and life returns to normal. That doesn't sound like that's going to happen, does it?
No, in other words, they're kind of saying to you, you get your vaccine, you're all good, you test negative with all the tests, so on and so on afterwards as well. But then once you actually go to turn up at the O2 Arena or wherever it's going to be, that you'll have to some sort of digital ticket app, which will be via digital health passport in time. It'll all merge together into one. So it'll show that even if you do get access into the venue inside, that they're leaving it to organizers, and Ticketmaster are promoting this as well, and to encourage these organizers of the event to lay out their own rules, as in you can still apply that people will still be asked to social distance and be mask compliance. So what have we achieved? Anything? You've got your vaccinations, you've got all this, but where's anything returning to normal as soon as you access your venue inside? I mean, what kind of a gig is that? We know from going to gigs and festivals around the world that people are pushing off each other, bumping off each other. People, the energy is flowing nicely. And if you're kind of trying to watch, like, oh, sorry, mate, can you stay back at 2 meters away from me? I mean, what kind of an experience is that for anybody?
Yeah, no, it is unbelievable. And I, like you were talking earlier about the science and everything, they seem to be ignoring the real scientists, and the likes of Dolores Cahill and Ivor Cummins and all these people that are actually putting the real figures out there. They're just, that doesn't mean nothing. And it's frustrating to see where you've got professionals that are proving that everything is a lie, and yet nothing is done about it. And I'm seeing, like, because I mean, we're obviously watching the Irish government. We see what's going on there. There's so much mishaps, and they all stick together. So, you expect change. And I've seen a post recently where someone was saying, and it applies all around the world, like when the politician does something wrong, the bankers do something wrong, the judges do something wrong, there's nothing done to them. And who's paying for all this money? And then they have, all these court cases to try to deal with it. It's the public is paying for it, and nothing is ever done. And, we have to have a change from what's going on there.
Of course, 100% right in what you're saying. And you've been through endless amounts of court cases yourself to justify exactly what you're saying, not just from reading on papers or articles and doing our own massive amounts of research that both of us do. So you've had to witness that many occasions firsthand yourself, and it's consistently going on. It's like we go back to 2008, or we can go back before that again, but all the crises and things that happen to the country and all that, who pays it back at the end of it? We bail out the bankers, we bail out the white collar criminals time and time again, while our taxes go up and everything else goes up around us, and people have left with little to no jobs around the place. Their houses get taken off them, and where the pauper again is bailing out the big shot. It never seems to change.
Yeah, like, I mean, I think 2008 was kind of a big land grab and kind of spread across Europe after. I think this is going to be bigger because, like everything they're saying, oh, you can't open the restaurants in Poland, you can't do this. The courts are open, and the city officials are open where they're chasing their property tax, they're chasing all the bills, they're coming after people, so how come they're allowed to operate if everything else is classed as non-essential? To me, it's the other way around. Why would you have court cases and stuff like that? That's not essential to me. Essential is where you need service. The whole lot is a joke anyway. I mean, it should be shut down. But, and you're talking about the court cases. I mean, I've had over 100, and in Poland, it's kind of different because you're just there, just the two of you, you know, each side, the defendant and the plaintiff. But in Ireland, I witnessed, you know, hundreds of court cases. And like you can hear by listening to it that the people were innocent, and all the time it was the judge was ruling in favor of the banks. And it was sad to see. And I mean, you probably witnessed it, the amount of homelessness that's going on in Ireland and people being thrown out, and just they're taking their dignity away from them. And it's going on all around the world. For who? You know, the select few. And like a lot of people think that their country owns the bank. You know, you want to look at the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers, and who owns your bank? You know, the bank isn't owned by your country. And if you think I'm wrong, just do a search on that. That might actually wake you up, because at the end of the day, it's all about the money controlling everything, and they have that. So, you know, we can't beat them by money. We can't set up a system that's money based. And sometimes people are setting up something, but they put an IPO on it. So all they have to do is press their printing press and buy shares in it, and then they control it. They have a majority shareholding, and they just kick out the founders. So if somebody's created something decent, so I think that if you are, you know, creating something to fight the system, don't put it on the market, you know, and just be surrounded by the proper board members that are ethical.
Yeah, which are hard to find.
I'm sure there's a few out there.
Well, like I said, this whole thing, the courts and all the systems and all that, I mean, they're set up that they're, you know, me or you are not going to win against these people. They're set up for profit all the time. They're massive corporation is what they are, to dish out as much money as possible, not to dish it out, but to dish it into their own pockets. And that's why it's been there. You've heard countless times, like yourself and others as well, they've been fighting the system, genuine cases, and you know 100% fact for fact, just you laid it down straight away, I should win this, no problem at all. And you're bemused, even your solicitors are bemused afterwards, like as to how you could have lost such maybe a simple, straightforward case going forward, and you've lost it on the most nefarious of a loophole, or something was worded differently like that. And you know, you have tens of thousands gone into euros or pounds gone into these cases, and all of a sudden just swooped out with you overnight. So they'll keep drowning you out until basically you're like a pauper again on the street, kind of, so you can't afford to fight them. And that's why often, as you know, more than anybody at times, that this is why these cases are so hard, and why it turns people off to fight the system at times, because they're so bloody expensive, and the average Joe on the street can't afford to fight against these systems, and they know that, and they're set up in that way that you're not to come against us. But if you do, you got big money to put in front of you to come against us, and we're going to take it 9 times out of 10 anyhow.
Yeah, and like the other thing is, I mean, if I had a case against you, and we have all our information in front of us, why a judge cannot resolve everything within one court case, but even within a month. I have had cases drag out for 2 and 3 years, and they basically wear you down. And once you run out of money, you can't have the legal side behind you, and then it's just about wearing you down. Because like, no matter who you're fighting, you're either fighting the city usually or the banks, and they just wear you down, and then they just come after everything. You know, they charge you for the costs of the court. So, and they're doing that, like there's millions of people going through that process, and you know, it's sick. But as you said, these guys, they're soulless, you know, they don't have a heart. They're all connected. You know, you're on about the dot connectors. Bill Gates, you know, he seems to be at the top of the pile at the moment.
They all are, and they're all acting like as if, you know, they're acting independently, but they're not. If you go and really do paper trails, money trails, dot connections like we've been doing, all that, it's just you'll find it leads back to the small few people time and time again, all the time. And most people are surprised by this, that if they don't see the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, they think, oh, separate, nothing got to do with Bill Gates or any of those. I could go through umpteen organizations and bigger dot connections where Bill Gates and where all his ties and his web just spirals out of control time and time again, and they're all massively connected. In the least places the average human being would actually think they're connected, he seems to have his blueprint everywhere across him, more so now than ever. But it's been in the making for decades, but now more so than ever. So it's interesting times ahead, but people need to be definitely aware of this kind of stuff to think that we're not getting back to normal anytime soon with the likes of these people. But we have to, as the people, have to take the power back. As simple as that, because if we don't, as I see these people I've mentioned, Chief Witty and Patrick Vallance and Gates and Jeremy Farrar from the stage, all these, and Boris and all that. I mean, Boris is just a script reader. Like, he's just basically going what this group is in the background, of course, all infiltrated by Bill Gates. I mean, we can go back before that with what's the guy that wonderful Neil Ferguson, of course, that basically set all this lockdown off here in England and a lot of places worldwide as well, saying, you know, that up to 500,000 people are going to die in the UK, 2.2 million people are going to die in America, so on and so on. I mean, obviously, we never even nearly got near any of that. All his projection models for the past couple of decades, you can go through any of his projection models, all the stuff he's done in the past has been time and time again, it's been completely out of loop. Now, he's next to useless, this kind of guy. But people might say, well, why are they still getting him in? Well, it kind of works in a funny way with these people is he's next to useless, but they want somebody like him in power, because not in power, but in a position to do these projection models. So, because the models they give are so out of this world that could never actually materialize into something real. And then, of course, that will justify the lockdown, it'll justify the justification. Boris coming out on the platform and saying, here, this is what the projection is, and it's all based on a fear projection again. That's all it is based in. We see time and time again. Of course, who was Neil Ferguson? Massively friends with and massively funded by is Bill Gates again, of course, and who's the Imperial College in London, which Neil Ferguson is massively intertwined with as well. The Imperial College London has been heavily funded by Bill Gates again. So, I mean, all these, just a couple of people have named off over the last 20 minutes or so, they're all interconnected. So do you think these people want anything to go back to normal anytime soon? We go back to the vested interests and how to trying to take down these kind of people, but they're all vested with each other and they're all crawling out with the same bed every morning, but they're acting like they're acting independently on the front of people to kind of give that illusion to people that, oh, we're all separate people and separate identities and going about our business. But if you actually go back into things and the web and all that, you'll find they all connect massively.
Exactly. And, you know, we always like to try to end on a happy note and some solutions and positive. I think there was something nice happened in Italy lately.
Yeah, there was. All right. As I say, we're struggling for positive stuff to come out at the moment. It seems to be all doom and gloom. But as far as positivity goes, I think it was Geneva in the last couple of days in Italy, where there was thousands of people protesting. They're getting it quite hard over in Italy with the lockdowns and all that as well. So you had thousands of people coming to the streets protesting over this, and rightly so, because they're being enslaved and their freedoms are being taken away from them overnight for no justification. So the riot police are out, and you can see, I'll leave a clip in it, but the riot police basically are there. Nobody was attacking anybody, and the riot police just backed off into a corner, and they actually stood, which is very nice to see. They stood with the people, and they took off all their helmets and their body armor around their head, and they stood shoulder to shoulder with the people. So it was nice to see that, because the police, we give them a hard time a lot of time, and some of the time it's rightly justified, but at times these people are held in these positions, and they know what's being enforced upon them, what they're trying to enforce upon the will of the people. They're kind of caught between a rock and a hard place. I'm not trying to stand up for them by any means, but they know a lot of this is a scam as well. And that was one instance alone where they just showed, look, would you think for any reason that they would take off their riot gear, their headgear, to take it off and stand with the people if they felt that, no, this is justification, what we're supposed to do? They'd be out hitting them over the head with battens. But they haven't. They said that to see what's wrong, and at the end of the day, when they take off their uniform, they have a family to go home to, just like me, you, and anybody else. So they have their power while they're in the so-called power while they're in the suit, and the only reason they have that power, of course, is because the people so easily give it to them, and people are under this illusion that they're very powerful authorities. They're only powerful. It's like fascism. How does fascism grow? Fascism can only grow not by a small few, but by the large population basically going along with this in fear, given the illusion. That's all it is over time.
Allora, si stanno togliendo il casco, un'immagine gesto di distensione dai poliziotti, che un grande applauso è partito e sta abbracciando la piazza. Un momento di distensione, vediamo tutti gli agenti hanno tolto il casco.
I think on another positive note that we will break this tyranny. There's loads of buzzwords we can use in it, but this tyranny that's been global fascism that's been rolled out worldwide, the tide is turning. We need more and more people to come forward as well. There's just, as the last episode we mentioned, there's whistleblowers. There's police around the world. There's police we mentioned in Australia. There's loads of people coming, solicitors, doctors, nurses. It's endless at this stage now that are coming out and saying enough is enough. We're not taking this. Loads of people are refusing to take the vaccine already. Like, I'm talking thousands of nurses. Doctors as well have said no, they're not taking it. So what's nefarious? These are not, conspiracy theorists or anything like that. Why are these so-called professionals in their field standing up before any vaccine is even rolled out, that they're actually saying, no, we're not having any part of this vaccine? Because they know it's a scam, and there's no reason why any human being would need this vaccine. But of course, if you're listening to Bill Gates always believes that good health only comes in the form of a vaccine. Yeah.
I think we should make Bill Gates a pin cushion, and he can have my one anyway.
Exactly.
And I'm sure there's a lot of other people we can,
Yeah, you'll have plenty of people queuing up for that pin cushion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Listen, Chris, it's been great as always. I know we've got a few tasty ones coming up. We've been discussing it, but we'll leave that for another day. We'll let you know what we're going to be talking about next week. But thanks for joining me again this week.
No worries. It's a pleasure as always, right? And we look forward to next week doing another one as well.
Perfect. So you'll find my episodes on awakeningpodcast.org, and you'll find Chris's on mindwars.uk. Until next week, take care.
See you next week.